Happy Saturday, everybody. For those of you who are joining me shortly, it's Saturday, November 4th. (9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to be hanging out here for a little while. I'm working on completing this bad Wabbit statue, which is almost done. You can see that guy. I'm working on trying to get this whiskey to actually look like whiskey. I think I need to give it a little bit of red. Try and make it look a little bit more wine-ish, but we shall see. Pink, brown, something kind of reddish. So tonight, hey Noel, old school. Tonight, well, actually last night, we did non-AUD stuff in the chat, and that was a lot of fun. Talked a lot about Diggory and Elmore and Tesser and the genesis of those series and the future of them and stuff. And tonight, I do some AUD stuff. So try and keep our discussion related to that series, unless people want to talk about other stuff. That's obviously what we want to do. But whenever I do these, Adrian and his tale tends to take over because it's the thing that I am most well known for. So it tends to dominate the conversation. But today, it can be the whole conversation. I don't care. What's everyone up to? Hey, Dan, off to a hockey game. Have fun, man. Enjoy. Are you playing or watching? Megan, welcome back. Miss Vegas. It looks a little better. What you doing down there? Hey, Tommy, Mr. Beaver. Yeah. How is the Lockheed Omnibus doing? Great question. Pretty good. Pretty good. With the sole exception of getting reviews. It had what I would describe as acceptable sales. It kind of, made its money back in the first couple weeks of release. The question is will it sustain? Because people who are going to buy it tend to buy it in the first month. And then it can nosedive right after that, and literally nothing else will sell. So my hope is that through the month of November and December, we see people coming back to it and new people coming back to it. And if it stays steady, it doesn't have to be crazy bestseller numbers. It just needs to sell. Then we're good. Page reads and Kindle sales have been a little on the slow side, but audio has been pretty good. So, and I'll circle back around to Locky stuff because Carl and I have been going back and forth about a lot of things. But we'll get to it. Leanna got banned. Oh, yeah, so reviews. We've been begging people to leave reviews for Locky's Omnibus because all the reviews that were done on book 1, 2, and 3 don't transfer over. And when you release something and it has 0 reviews for a long time, it loses credibility really quickly. And a big thing that Amazon and Audible do in terms of viral promotion is if it gets a lot of reviews or a lot of sales in the first preferably in the first 24 to 48 hours. But if that doesn't happen, then you have about a 2-week period, give or take, to get as many reviews as possible. And if you start to get a lot of positive reviews, then they start to include it in automated free marketing. So it starts to show up higher in recommendations. It starts to show up as suggestions better. So we're literally beg, borrowing, and stealing to try and get people to leave reviews for it on Amazon and Audible. So if anybody wants to listen to it on Audible, Carl and I both have a ton of audio codes. We'd be happy to give you one. And just let us know. And on the Kindle, we can't give you the Kindle because, it's under lock and key now. But it's on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can basically read it for free and then just leave a review for it. Try getting another review up with your business. Thanks, Megan. That's really helpful. Like, it really is helpful. Like, it's annoying to beg for reviews all the time, but the reality of it is a huge part of whether or not something is successful is if it gets reviews and if they're positive. Tommy, you're behind on AUD, but is that series officially done, or are you still writing more? I'm still writing more. Not a ton, but more. We're at book 14 now. Book 15 is now in process. I started working on that in earnest yesterday, day before yesterday, Friday, I think. And I'm hoping to have book 15 out spring, maybe late winter. It depends. It's really hard to gauge timeline right now. And then depending upon how a couple of moments in that story pan out, it could either be like, 10,000 words, or it could be 100,000 words on its own. And if it's good and I like it, then I'll split book 15 into 2 books, and then there'll be 2 more books of AUD coming, but it could potentially be 1. It could potentially be 2, but I don't think there'll be 3 more. The Tales series that has all like the anthologies and short stories and novellas and stuff like that in it. That is like open-ended because I just like add stuff when something fun to write pops into my head. And I would like to do another anthology, invite some people in from, the zombie apocalypse genre or other genres that just want to play around in my, my sandbox of Adrian's world, and, put more of that stuff out. So, but yeah, at least 1, possibly 2. Tawny, hoping this will be going when you get home. Well, I usually go 2 hours. If I took my Ritalin in the evening, maybe we'll go 3. We'll see. Yesterday I was pretty tired, but yeah, at least a couple hours. Leanna left an angry review about a shitty product. Aw. Liz, just message us. Just send Carl Meadows or I a private message directly, because these comment streams we get lost. And then going back after the fact to search through comments to find who asked for what is a huge pain in the ass. And depending upon where you comment and how you comment, sometimes I can't even message you. I have to send you a friend request and hope you see it and hope you accept it, and then I can message you. So just message me. The page is open. My DMs are always open. Your daughter is stoked. Need to catalog what you have. Yeah, whatever you need. I keep a bunch of stuff here. I'm a little low right now. I got cleared out around Austin, and I left a bunch of books in Austin with Anthony Castro after the bad Wabbit signing, so I'm a little low, but I have some stuff on order that's due to come in. Loved the Tales. Yeah, the Tales are really good. Hey, Carl's awake. Aw, we were just talking about Lockie. So yeah, while Carl is here, make it useful. Make his insomnia useful. He and I are discussing the future of Lockie and how that happens and whatnot. And he has 3 more books written. He just sent me the 4th book to read today, and I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And the reality of it is because he and I are splitting the proceeds on it, and because Danielle Cohen is a expensive narrator, more expensive than most. It's really expensive to make Lockie books. It's a lot of money up front to lay down, and then he and I are splitting it. So recouping the money that I lay out to get it recorded, it is tough. And financially, we are, my family is pretty strapped right now. We just had to buy a new car, and we're saving to buy a house, and we're trying to not run up any debt at all to keep our credit rating nice and clean. And we just had some dental work my wife had to get done. So financially, I don't have the flexibility right now to drop $10,000 on audio recordings. I just don't have that money. I could probably, do 1, but it would be tough. So he and I were talking about maybe going to Kickstarter and seeing if people would basically put their money where their mouth is and send us some money ahead of time to basically pre-order the books, which is essentially all that I use Kickstarter for. You go there and you pledge and you order stuff ahead of time. You get it before release, and then I always throw in the extras like bookmarks and stickers, and maybe you can name a character or name a place or something like that for extra money. And we do the proof copies that the ultra rares and such. And then we also did like the short stories, and for the hardcover thing, we're doing the role playing game, which is a whole other conversation. But he and I were discussing the logistics of what it looks like and how much work it would be. And I think we're probably going to try, because like, why not? And even if all we do is raise the money to launch book 4, that'll be cool. And that, that'll get it going. That'll get another release out. That'll have something for people who are doing the omnibus to then follow on to, which could theoretically be great. So, the margins are so tight right now across the board for everything, and people are, cutting back because the economy is crazy, and it's really tough now to have the flexibility to just do a whole bunch of projects. Whereas before, when I didn't have kids, I could just bankroll everything because I had nothing to spend my money on. But now that I have kids and we're paying for all of that, I have to be much more frugal. Carl's got kids too, so. But yeah, we're probably going to try and do some level of crowdfunding, hopefully for the whole trilogy. And I think it'll basically come down to how much money we raise, and then we'll take it from there. So somebody brought up something that made me think about what was going on. Locky reviews, Locky potentially crowdfunding. Oh, the role-playing game. So for the AUD hardcover at the mid-level in terms of dollars, I let 4 people buy into an online role-playing game run by me. And it'll be set in Adrian's world with me as the game master, and they'll be playing in there, and it's going to be canon. So whatever happens in the game will actually be an event that happens in the books. And my hope is that I'll take the events of the game and the dialogue and basically turn it into a short story that will perhaps be its own Tales release. And that'll be fun. But that's this coming Friday. That's November 10th, 11th. What day is that? November 10th, this coming Friday. And it's starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the 4 players are pretty much ready to go. And we're going to live stream it. And I'm going to have my buddy JB, who's one of the players. He's actually the DM for my regular Tuesday night game that I play. We used to stream, but it became kind of cumbersome for him to do it every week. But he's offering to stream this to his channel. So we'll have a Twitch channel and then a YouTube channel that you'll be able to tune in on. And you'll be able to watch. And it'll be really fun. And the people who are playing will be able to speak and their microphones will be on, but the people who are just watching will just be able to view like a regular live stream game. It'll be cool. I have a really fun game. 10th, I think. Or it might be the 17th. I don't remember. I'm probably talking out of my ass. Documents, AUD, hardcover files, RPG, Hot Dog Apocalypse. 17th, you're right, I'm wrong. Instead of November 11th, it's the 17th. So 2 Fridays from now. Ignore me. Not this coming Friday, the Friday after. So the name of the game is Hot Dog Apocalypse. Hot Dog Apocalypse, The Wrath of Walt. So if you remember from, I think it's book 4, might be book 3, there's a certain fellow that has he's a few sandwiches short of a picnic, and he's going to show up. And it's going to be really fun. We're going to see some characters from the books appear. It's going to be really fun. So tune in. I'll be posting links to where you'll be able to watch it pretty much as soon as JB gives me the links. We have to do a quick little tech test with everybody to make sure that they can connect in, and they've got microphones that function, and if they want to have their video running, have them make sure that they can do that, all that. Man, where's my gloss varnish? That's silver. That's not varnish at all. But very exciting stuff. It will be a lot of fun. We're going to run for probably 4 to 6 hours, depending upon how it goes. And like any role-playing game, you can't survive first contact, right? No plan survives first contacts, because whatever the players decide to do is wherever the game goes. So I've prepped 4 or 5 scenarios for how they handle the adventure, but if they go off the rails or decide to take really long to do things, it could run 8 hours. So we'll see. Take care, Tommy. Have a good night. The licorice dynamite sticks. Well, he had licorice for the fuses and hot dogs for the dynamite sticks. Feed your kids, Megan. Jesus, before they start eating you. Little cannibals. Monsters. They're monsters. I really don't want to hunt for my gloss varnish. Where is it? Ha ha! So yeah, that'll be exciting. But before I do that, this has to dry, because I have some paint and wash drying right now. So I'm just going to set this over here on some paper towel. So you guys can see that, but I think that looks way more like whiskey. The guy who originally painted this painted the spill on the floor here. He painted it the same color as the bottles to save money, I'm guessing. And it just did not look like booze. It just looked like wax. So I repainted it to look a little bit more like liquid. And then I touched up some stuff. I gave him more of a white fluffy bunny tail and bloodied up his knuckles there and his face. And he has a wound in his ear that happens pretty early on in the comic. And the wound was just painted gray. So I put blood on and all that jazz. And I dirtied his feet because he's running barefoot. So not a whole lot of change, but just tidying it up. And after this, I'm going to spray it with a sealant, matte sealant, to protect all the color so it doesn't get chipped and scratched and stuff like that. And then I'll put gloss varnish over the matte sealant on top of the booze, so the booze looks wet, which will be a lot of fun. Hi, Shelly. Welcome to the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Put this stuff away. So does anybody have any topics of discussion that they want to cover? Anything about AUD that they want to ask? Characters, incidents? People tend to ask a lot of the same questions if they're new to the chats. What made you want to write? How did you write it? All that jazz. But is there any specific questions? Any events that happened in the books that made you scratch your head, or you wanted to get peace on? Because there are definitely events in the book that people like and don't like. Might be kind of fun to bitch at me while you can. Leona's moving to her desktop. All right, Leona, I will alert the media. I always used to wonder, before I started writing, what it would be like to meet the people who came up with the stories. And if I could ask them why, wouldn't that be so cool? And now, as a writer, if I can do that for people, it's so cool. Why did you kill this character? Oh, good question. Because there's almost always a method to the madness. Ugh. Got a paint booger preventing my bottle from stopping. Any update on sitting down and telling your own personal story? I don't know if you, I know you were in the chat, Beav, last night, and I kind of talked about that a little bit because the way our workflow here at the house is during the week, my original hope was that I would be able to have more time here in the basement where our offices are set up during the day, where it's quiet and the kids aren't running around like crackheads. But what's happened is my wife is down here working all day, and she's a therapist and needs privacy for HIPAA, so I can't come downstairs at all. Like, I have to stay upstairs, and furthermore, I have to stay away from the basement door because I can hear a little bit through. And even though she uses headphones and I can't hear anything about the client, I have no idea who she's talking to or about what, I can still hear her, and I want to protect her, her privacy and her legitimacy as a therapist. So I'm not down here when it's quiet to record it. I got a new microphone because I was using the headset, but I got the new microphone as part of that process. That was a gift. And my hope is that I can kind of curate some time, perhaps late at night like this, where I can start recording it. I have like 10 episodes outlined, and it'll be really nice to do it. And I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff. And, I went back and forth about how personal I wanted it to be, in terms of do I want to talk about my journey of writing, like how I started writing and like how I got to where I am as a writer, or do I want to talk about myself and, go all the way back to, how I got to be the person I am today, because it's a story. And while I don't want to sound narcissistic and say that I have a particularly compelling story that people will, connect with and gravitate to and all that other nonsense, it's a story and people might be able to connect with it and find some solace in knowing that, they're just as fucked up as me, or vice versa. And I think I want to go somewhere in the middle. I want to make it at least a little personal, maybe a little bit more than a little. It doesn't belong there. And yeah, and probably about 10 episodes, probably 10 to 15 minutes each. Keep them punchy. Journey of a writer with attention deficit disorder and depression. But we'll see. I have a lot going on, and I'm terrible at juggling stuff when I get stressed out. You're interested in the person. Thank you. I appreciate that. You run into walls a lot, Leanna. That's tough. Yes. My wife deals with people who present as being very put together, but in fact are barely holding on. And it's, they're just normal people, just normal people. There's nothing wrong with them. Noel, how did you come up with the pacifist ending to the Sean Boogaloo? That's a great question. So I knew going into that whole situation that I could go at it one of two ways. And it was the pure violence way, where Adrian just comes in and just, flexes muscles and starts blowing shit up, which would have probably been the way he would have tried to do it. Or I could play it in a more strategic and social sense. And when I was designing the Gilbert character, I knew I wanted him to be an ex-Green Beret. And one of the big things that Green Berets do is the non-combat approach. They spend an inordinate amount of time figuring out how to solve problems without violence before they actually engage in direct combat actions. And I knew with Gilbert basically becoming his strategy mentor, that he was going to urge Adrian to take a much more calm approach. Thanks, Cole. It's me, actually, and my kids. My wife had it made for my birthday, so it's pretty sweet. So I knew that I wanted Adrian to take a more measured approach and to just kind of slow down and try to build support to see what was going on, and to have that be a a different way for him to try and solve that problem. And in terms of the actual ending, like the point where he, decides to like basically have them do the dirty work, I wanted them to solve the problem. I didn't want Adrian to just like come in and kill their leader and then be like, okay, now we're going to be friends because I murdered your leader. It made way more sense for him to try to get them to handle it. So it was character growth for Adrian to do it that way. So he didn't solve that problem with violence because he had been very violent up to that point, solving problems. And it also allowed me to highlight Gilbert and what Gilbert brought to the table in terms of like strategy and patience and thoughtfulness and, that guerrilla warfare kind of mindset where, you start coming at a problem from a different direction and, making the most out of what you got. So great question, Noel. Is it based on something I read or watched? It is not, but it was created from a lot of books that I had read about the Green Berets. When I was going to school for college, I wound up, for my second degree, my psychology degree, one of the things that I studied was PTSD and traumatic brain injury. And specifically, I did a lot of research on the special forces because they have like some pretty different treatment strategies than mainline forces. And I knew that if I was like putting my effort into researching how they were kind of dealing with TBI and PTSD, it would be, kind of more cutting edge than just doing that. I also wanted to work with those guys, but I'd done a ton of research on Green Berets. So my brother, my oldest brother, when he was in his youth, he fought in Vietnam and he was part of Mac V SOG. So if you guys know anything about Vietnam era Green Berets, that's pretty interesting stuff. I don't know why I just did that. That was not what I wanted to do with my electronic device. That's what I want to do with my electronic device. So, yeah, I mean, people who have anxiety and depression mask, Leanna. Cole, read your first book. Finna get them all. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's the way I write is, obviously a little different than how, a lot of other writers write, but that's kind of what makes reading my stuff hopefully interesting for some people. I get that it doesn't appeal to everyone, but for the people that does appeal to, cool. Hope you love it. Make sure you check in. Hopefully still playing Magic. No. Nope. I'm actually right now taking pictures of Magic cards to sell on eBay. Mainly because I have no damn time. Friday night Magic is Friday night not happening for me. Because I got the kids, got the jobs, got the wife, got all that jazz. And it's just too damn expensive to keep up with. Like, honestly. I love playing. It's a super fun game. I still stay kind of up to date on the sets and stuff because it's just kind of interesting. But I can't. I have friends who still play pretty regularly, but FNM is dead. Yeah, everything's Commander right now. Standard went the way of the dodo. Carl, it was also crucial to the We Can Be Better theme. Yep. And the reason for the Trinity's existence, just solving it with violence. And then Adrian would have been walking the path to failure. Exactly. And that is also kind of before when the whole metaphysical stuff like really starts to kick in, and it's essentially foreshadowing the fact that how Adrian chooses to solve his problems will directly affect how the world kind of pans out. Cold guerrilla warfare. Yep. Yeah. And leave no room for guerrillas. He knows there's no guerrilla warfare. Asymmetrical warfare. Pioneer sold out. Hasbro's takeover polluted the market of Magic. I mean, it's been around a long time. They've been pretty successful. So, I mean, I think everything with Magic started to go downhill when they released Mythics. Like that to me was like the death knell for me for interest, because it just became like the cards to keep up with the modern environment became way too hard. Too many expensive cards to track down. When I played competitively, like I was Grand Prix level, you could put together a tier 1 deck for maybe $200, and a $250 deck was like unthinkably expensive back then. And that's like when you were running like, full sets of multiple fetch lands and, crazy dollar figures. 3 and 2. But yeah, I'm out for now. Pop culture. Yeah, the licensing thing got pretty lame. Right now, I'm just trying to offload stuff because I just don't have room for it, and I don't have time to play, and we can use the money for a house. So, Volcanic Islands. Yeah, I sold all my duels for a ton of money. That was before they like skyrocketed in price. Sorry, I walked away. But yeah, like I had full play sets of all the duels for a very long time, and I had multiple play sets of all the fetches for a very long time. And when I say multiple play sets, I mean multiple play sets. Like I was a serious collector and player, and I offloaded all those and made a mint. I had foil fetch lands that went for I sold them for top dollar at the time, and I think they were like $150. Playing Infect. Yeah, Infect sucked balls. Oops, I win. Just get the nut straw. Infect wasn't as bad as Affinity in Affinity's heyday, because there was just nothing that could stop Affinity. Steam vents. And now we're just talking about Magic, everybody. Welcome to the nerdery. The fun thing I get to do as a writer is I can kind of include my real life interests into the stories. And I use the example in Tesser that Abe talks about his hobby is playing Magic, and he gets pissed because he has to go deal with a dragon when he really wants to go to Friday Night Magic. Being able to bring it in that way is really fun. And Adrian is very much not the gamer in me. I joke that Adrian is very much me. A lot of him and his past is loosely formulated around my past, but he is not the gamer other than the video game portion. Scrimey River. Oh, gee. Adrian talks about how he's playing Borderlands and Fallout and all the video games that I like, and I have him have a PlayStation because that's what I had at the time. And just keeping it real in that way is a lot of fun. And also, they say, write what you know, which you can do to a point, right? I've never actually met a dragon. I've never actually fought zombies. However, I can write characters that know, life skills that I know, or life skills that I can research in a meaningful way, which is always fun. I talk about how much writing is actually just research. And when I married my wife, she was like, why aren't you writing? I'd just be sitting at my computer staring at the screen. And the reality of it is I would say 30 to 40% of time on a book is actually spent researching, making sure that, you're getting all of your facts right, or if you're talking about something, you're speaking to it in a way that will do the subject justice. And when you're talking about like geography, if you're describing like what direction someone's facing, like, are they looking into the sun, are they looking away from the sun, and like I'm like looking up shit on Google Maps and being like, all right, if they're standing, zoom in really hard, and looking like, all right, if they're facing in this direction and it's this time, that means the sun's actually to their right. So when I say he squints, that doesn't actually make sense. So I have to go back in and change that. Yeah, Carl, so much research, and people love to point out what you get wrong. That's right. Sons of bitches. You dirty bastards. You love to tell us what we get wrong. So yeah, you try to minimize those mistakes as much as possible, because I don't feel like dealing with it. The complaining, like, y'all people are assholes. Not you. Not specifically. The rest of you are pretty cool. But there are people who like message me and be like, actually, did you know that it works like this? And it's like some inane fact that absolutely does not change the story in the least. And, like 8 people in the whole world will figure it out. And yeah, that's a mistake, I guess. Well, I just wanted you to know. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. I'm going to do all of the work to change a couple sentences in a book that's already published in a recorded audiobook. I will then have to pay for a pickup on to fix the size of the bolt that I mentioned in an idle conversation between 2 people. Is there? Hey, Joe, I feel attacked. Yeah, welcome to my life, brother. Yes, Beaver. There are a couple of pretty big mistakes I've made. I forget the exact scenario now, and I'm pretty sure I fixed it. But when they're talking about like that day, quote unquote, I talk about Seattle's stadium, the dome, whatever it is. And the way I wrote it, it didn't actually exist at that time. Like, it just straight up didn't. It had transitioned to a different facility or something to that effect. And people who lived in Seattle were like, hey, little FYI for you, but that building doesn't exist. Shit. And that I changed, because that's like a pretty big, that was a pretty big mistake. But repaired, no big deal. And there were some other mistakes. Like I infamously in the first AUD book, he has a SIG for a pistol, a SIG 9mm. And I wrote the scene when he's at the retirement home right after he deals with his mother. He has like a little exchange of gunfire with some undead, and then I say he puts the gun on safe. And I did not do enough research in the moment. I didn't go back and look at it, because SIGs don't actually have a safety. they have a decocking lever, which then makes the gun safe until you pull the trigger. You don't like flick a safety like you would on a 1911. So that was a mistake. And somebody messaged me and I was like, bullshit, that's not right. And then I did like 2 minutes of research and was like, all right, damn it. But at the time, it was super easy to fix. Now, if you go back, it says he decocks it and puts it away. Shut up and listen. Yeah, there are little mistakes that just, no matter how much research you do, they just happen, and there are mistakes in almost every book out there, and it does not matter how many times it gets edited or proofed. Things slip through the cracks. Colony Lost was edited 3 times by 3 different people. 2 were Audible editors. 1 was the editor that I paid on my own before I sold it to Audible, and it still went to press and had a couple of typos in it. 3 different editors, all professionals. And there were still like 2 or 3 typos at least. Because there's just too many ways typos can slip through the cracks. And that's also, fun fact, a reason why writing in a science fiction or fantasy setting where you don't have to follow established like science or tech or items is actually a pretty sweet play. Because if you're not following something that people can research and prove you're wrong on, then by default you're right because you're writing the content as you create it. So it becomes a little bit more tricky when you're writing in the real world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1. So yeah, there are definitely mistakes that were made. What else? Tesser's pretty mistake free as far as I know. AUD had a bunch of mistakes in it, but like none too big. The stadium one was a big deal. The SIG one was big. The whole one of the things that was a quote unquote mistake that I caught a lot of shit on was going back and forth with the words magazine and clip. I know the difference between the two. I am aware of the difference mechanically, but in modern colloquialism, people interchange those words all the time. And when you're writing a lot of content, you can't just constantly use the same words over and over and over and over. So every once in a while, you got to pivot and throw in an alternative. Otherwise, people tend to like go a little cross-eyed. And consequently, I didn't use magazine or mag. Every time Adrian reloads, I threw in clip here and there. And I caught so much shit about that. Like, I couldn't even tell you. Like, this guy doesn't know shit about guns. He keeps saying clip. No, I'm pretty well knowledged about guns. I own multiple. I've shot guns my entire life. My dad's best friend was a chief of police. Like, we went hunting all the time. I'm pretty knowledgeable about guns. That being said, I don't know everything about every gun. And there's writing for accuracy and then writing for quality. And accuracy does not always mean quality. Carl says it's impossible to be a subject matter expert on everything. Exactly. Some people get bogged down on every detail when most people won't be bothered about it. Exactly. You have to figure out what's going to be big, what's going to be important, what's going to pull people out, what's going to ruin continuity, that kind of stuff. And word repetition is a curse. And I'm awful with it. I find myself repeating myself constantly, which I catch on the second time through. I realize I say the same sentence kind of twice in a row, or I do like these mirrored sentences where I start out talking about something and then I finish the sentence kind of saying it again. And then I just got to like chop the sentence in half and pick the side that's good or better. That's really fun. But that's why you edit, right? First pass is almost never going to be the way it lands. Some sentences will be fine. Sometimes you need to switch around. Sometimes you realize you got paragraphs in the wrong place. Yeah, ATF just joined the chat. It's like, apparently they have such good like AI photo recognition now that if you like pull a gun out on one of these live streams, they can actually read the serial number off of it and find out if you're like using a stolen weapon or whatever, or is it registered or whatnot. You're like, show us your gun. No, nope. My guns are all legal. Everything's fine, but I just don't want the scrutiny. Hey, Carl. AUD got you with the psychological side of things. Well, again, like I was saying earlier, I went to school for psychology. I have a psychology degree. And I knew when I was writing it, I started writing it right after I finished my degree. And I knew that when I was going to write it, I needed to make it deeply psychological. I needed to make his mental health a very big part of the process. And it's writing in the journal format. You get to see his flaws in a different way than if it's just, written in standard, third person, looking over his shoulder, and you get to see his delusions, right? So like one of the things that a lot of people miss with AUD because of the journal format is he talks a lot of shit. Like he talks a lot of shit, and it's hard on purpose. It's hard to discern when he's being like serious and like introspective, and when he's trying to be serious and introspective and not bluffing or blustering to like psych himself up, or desensitize himself to something he knows he has to do, even though he's like terrified of it, or he really doesn't want to do it, and he starts like talking shit, and basically like he talks about how good he is at things, because if he thinks that he's not as good as he needs to be, then he's probably not going to do the thing he has to do. So in the journal format, you get to see both sides, which is why the side fictions became such a neat opportunity for people to get that perspective on who he actually is as a person. Because like he talks about himself in a certain way, and then people see him and then they talk about him in that way. And you get to see like kind of the reality, They say that about the narrators, right? There's their story, your story, and then the truth. And that's kind of what happens there, because there's Adrian's version, and then there's the version that people report when they see him, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? After all this time, is there parts you wish you would have added for more? Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, man. That's like my life's regret. There are so many parts that I could have punched up and made better. There are some storylines that I got bored with that should have gotten more attention than they got. And I just wanted to move the story along because I was losing interest. So, going back and adding more to those would be really cool, but it's too late to do that. Notably the farm. I actually wanted to write another month of interaction for the farm, but I was getting bored with it, and I wanted to kind of move it along, and it started to feel like filler to me as I was writing it. I'm not sure if this is actually doing enough for the story, and people really like it. And, in retrospect, I should have written at least one more side fiction where it's from the farm's perspective, where we see them plot and plan and before they execute, the big attack. I should have shown that instead of just having it be the aftermath. And then there's stuff that I would remove. Stuff that I would remove. I don't know. I don't think there's anything I would pull out. There's definitely stuff I would add. Which is funny because it's such a big series. The first 8 books is 1,000,003 words, which is gigantic. It's huge. And to think that it took me 8 books to tell that story, and I would go back and add more, just speaks to more of my ability to just build this gigantic world and explore all the nooks and crannies in it, as opposed to my talent as a writer. But it is what it is. Carl, realistic first-person POV should mean that the character is an unreliable narrator. Exactly. By default, we are unreliable narrators. We only have our own perspective. That's it. That's all we've got. And we do not always report the truth. When I went and got my psychology degree, my minor was in criminal justice, and because I wanted the splash damage of being able to be a cop. And one of the things that they talk about when they're talking about trial cases and witness testimony and all that jazz is one of the things in a courtroom that is most effective when you're trying to get someone convicted or you're trying to accuse them of a crime is eyewitness reports. Like that's one of the heaviest weighted things that will convince a jury of guilt or innocence. And without a doubt, eyewitness reports are the most unreliable of all of the things that you can put in front of a jury, because people are routinely wrong about what they see, like as often as not. So you have to like corroborate the living shit out of eyewitness testimony to show that they actually saw what they said they saw. And, you know, because people lie, and then memory is flexible. When we access memories and we retell them, the way we retell them writes over the way we recorded them. So if you constantly tell a story over and over and over and over and over again, every time you tell it, it gets a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different. And then over time, it's a different story. And you remember it as the different story. So, unreliable narration is the point. Leanna, psych was your favorite topic in school. You love all the internal conflict, peek inside the mind. It's always cool to see how people perceive them, like the flashbacks and how people react to them. Yeah, like that's so much fun to write. So much fun to write. And it gives them a legitimacy as a person that I think is really cool. So, and all of the zombie books that I had read up to that point were very procedural, I guess I would say. In the sense that it was like, outbreak, contagion, escape. They're all very linear in the way that they were told. And I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something a little different. I didn't want it to just be that, I didn't want it to be another World War Z or that's a good card. I wanted it to have its own little spin to it, in addition to the metaphysical aspect of it. Cameron, why not go back? Maybe you have, you don't know. One of my favorite things about book one was that you kept going back and filling in the nooks and crannies. Adrian seeing his dead neighbor in the street. Chapters later, you told the day of the dead lady. Yep. I absolutely could. A lot of the reason why the Tales series exists is because of that. Because I can go back and I can fix and add and tweak and do all that jazz. The issue is that the story has become so big by this point that going back and adding things now is not as simply as just rewriting it. Like I have to research my own continuity before I can do stuff like that. Like I have to go back and make sure. I had a phone call with Chris Philbrook the other day about the short story that I'm writing for him for the Kickstarter. And this is the second one that he's bought. So, which is awesome. But we're talking about how he wants his story to be kind of like a that day flashback. And like in the phone call, like I had to go back and I had to look up the two stories that I wrote that had his character and his family's characters in them to make sure that like I could actually write the story he wanted. Like, did I reference that? Did I already say that? How did I describe this thing? How did I do X, Y, Z? And in the end, we were able to make it work, the story idea that he wanted, which is going to be a lot of fun. But, like the amount of research I have to do of my own continuity at this point to add stuff it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's time consuming when you're trying to peer through, 1.5 million words to make sure you get, the right things correct. Like naming characters the wrong thing, which has happened embarrassingly more than once. Adrian's March, Adrian's April. So Noelle is asking, at the end of Adrian's March, which is 1 to 2 books away, will it be an open ending or will it be a closed ending? I think the way that I would answer that, I already know, where it's going. I have a rough idea of how it's going to end. And my hope is that with Adrian's story, I will be able to bring the Adrian's March storyline, this European apocalypse. I can bring the story of that to a satisfying end that makes sense and feels good, and doesn't stretch credibility too much, and take a break, and kind of shelf it for a while and let people catch up and digest it. And then if in a year or two after I get some other projects done, if a new storyline, a continuation comes to me that feels good and natural and organic, that I'm not forcing or writing just for the sake of writing, if it makes sense to write, then I'll write more. The easy thing that you can just kind of assume is that, the first 8 books of the series up to Cassie was Adrian's Trinity, right? Adrian's portion of the cosmos. And then, we find out at the end of Cassie that, hey, wait a minute, you're not the only Trinity. And then Adrian's March is him finding out that, he needs to go help a second Trinity. And we already know from book 8 that there are 3 Trinities. So the natural organic answer to that question is that if Adrian's March deals with the second Trinity, then theoretically there would be more books in me to describe what happens to the third Trinity. That being said, as of this moment, I don't have any good ideas that I really like for the third Trinity. I have 4 different scenarios that I've kind of gone over and written notes on, and I'm not really in love with any of them for various reasons. I think chiefly of which I don't want to rehash it. I don't want to just do it again. I don't want it to be like, the Lord of the Rings, where every book is Frodo and Samwise just fucking walking. And I love the Lord of the Rings. That's not me shitting on it. But they spend a lot of time in that book just walking. And I don't want Adrian's books to be him just traveling, searching for people. So I need the third Trinity story arc to not be that, and to make sense, and to feel good, and to, be what I need it to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do 1. So, Noel, do I know any grade A celebrity that has read AUD or contacted me about it? When we were working hard on the TV show and trying to, get it made, the project was shopped around to a lot of A-listers to see if they would sign on. The vast majority of them didn't even look at it because they get approached with scripts. Written scripts, and they read the written script. So asking them to read a series is a big ask. And we never got to the point where we had a completed script for the pilot that we were really happy with to send out. So nobody official off of that, though I do know a lot of people were approached, big name people, and I know that they are aware of it. I know that there are multiple producers and directors that are I guess you'd say household names that circled the project at one point or another. And many of them read the books, or read at least 1 or 2 of the books to become more familiar with it, which is really cool. And there are some juggernaut producers who were involved at some point here and there that read it. I know people that have worked on The Walking Dead have read at least some of it, or all of it. I personally have handed books to some of the cast members. I signed a book for Greg Nicotero back at Walker Stalker Con years and years and years ago. And don't know if you ever read it, but you got the book. So, and then at conventions, you hobnob with a lot of celebrities. When you're a vendor, when you have a booth, you get a little bit more backstage access than if you're just an attendee. You know, like you get to go through the loading docks and you get to see the green rooms and stuff like that. And, you know, you take like different entrances to come in a lot. And I got to, you know, cross paths with a lot of celebrities and, you know, shoot the shit with them. And a lot of them picked up a book, you know, because they just needed something to read on the flight. I don't know how many of them were A-listers, but there were a lot of like, you know, convention level, you know, actors and actresses. South American Trinity with sombreros. Definitely capybaras. Yeah, that would be really fun. A lot of people, it's a tragic misprint. Legends. Might actually be worth more money. But I don't know. I can't think of anybody right off the top of my head. I know I'm pretty sure Joe Manganiello read it, at least in part, because he was looking for a property and he wound up optioning Mountain Man, which is compared to my work a lot. So my assumption would be that he read it. And also my producer, my TV producer, worked with him on a show for several years, and they were on like a first name basis. And I know that he pitched it to Joe, but I think Joe had already signed on to Mountain Man. But we'll see. Which will be fun if he gets it made. Maybe he'll go down south. But yeah, I'm sure there's some A-listers out there that have read it. I know some, you know, quite notable authors have read it. Part of how I got my big break was John Ringo reading it. The science fiction author who's, you know, like pulpy science fiction, space opera kind of stuff. And he's like wildly successful. And he actually read it online and reached out to me before it became a book and was like, dude, what are you doing? And that's essentially how I got my first break. Like my big publishing break push, even though I was already successful on the website and I was making some money and, you know, realizing like, hey, this writing thing has legs. Like not only just like, do people like it, but like, I think I could actually like do this as a job. And then John messaged me out of the blue one day and was like, hey, bro. And I didn't even know John. I had never read any of his work. And he messaged me on the website using the messaging system and was like, hey, I'm John. And he messaged me like all of his credentials, which is really funny. Like, I'm published with this person. I wrote these books. And like he wrote me like all of these reasons why he was a legit person to talk to, which was really sweet because I didn't know anything about him. And I researched him and I was like, yeah, sure. And like, let's talk. And he hooked me up with his editor and his publishing company, and that opened the door. But he read the whole thing through. And if you've read John Ringo's Black Tide Rising series, which is his zombie series, there is a nod to AUD in it where he talks about the Halligan bar, and he like mentions that like it's almost as if they designed it to kill zombies. And he messaged me and was like, hey, I'm putting that in the book for you. I was like, thanks, bro. Which was very cool. But then we lost contact over the years. I still have his contact information, but he moved and kind of became very political, and the whole sad puppies thing was going on, and he kind of got roped into that, and I did not want to become a part of that conversation at all. So I kind of stepped away. But he was very sweet and very kind, and I would not say anything bad about him. Have Halligan will travel. That's right. But John's a cool cat. I really appreciate what he did for me. Gave me an opening that a lot of people don't get. And, you know, the end of that story, which many of you already know, is that publishing deal that he helped me get fell through in the 11th hour. And at that point I was like devastated because it was like, well, shit, like, all right, I lost my big opportunity. It went away. And then everyone on the website was like, just self-publish it. Because by then self-publishing had become a thing, and it was like an avenue to an audience. And I had people messaging me like, dude, just make a book. Just make it. Let us buy a book. Just make a book. And I was like, all right, I'll make one. And here I am. So I made one, and then I made 7 more, and then I made 3 more, and then I made 5 more, and now that's what I do for a living. But boy, was that terrifying. I tell you what. The really scary one was when I actually had the thought of like, I could quit my job. Like, I think I could quit my job and just be a writer. Like, that was a scary thought process. Because, you know, we're, for lack of a less delicate word, we are indoctrinated in our culture to just accept our role as you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you go to sleep, you wake up, you go to work. And like the idea of like breaking that mold and like becoming my own boss and all that jazz was like alien, and like not knowing what I would do for health insurance and all that jazz. But here I am, living my best life. Beeve, do you have your own Halligan? No, but I have a Halligan bottle opener. It's about this big. It's pretty awesome. Someone emailed it to me. 3 degrees away from Michael Bublé. Nice. That's cool. Yeah. I'm a hypocrite in that I do not have my own Halligan bar. But to be fair, they're pretty expensive, and I just haven't gone through with it. Plenty of banana boxes, no Halligan bars. But that's okay too. Thanks for adopting you. You're welcome, Noel. When are you getting to Spain? Get your ass in gear. Argentina's... You're all done there, man. Just get moving. The convention thing, the 3 degrees from people, like you get to meet so many people when you go to conventions all the time. And when I was coming up, I went to a lot of conventions, like in the 2013 to like 2016 era, like the 3 years or so before I met my wife. I was going to shows minimum every 8 weeks, something. And then it was really more like every 6 weeks. I was doing something, and in many cases I had like back-to-back shows where I was like traveling and doing conventions and signings and bookstores and comic book shops and stuff like that. Like I was just constantly going. Again, single with no kids. So I was like going all over. Like I was driving to Atlanta, I was going to Philadelphia. I was doing shows all over the Eastern Seaboard down to the Maryland area kind of stuff, and up here in New England, the Boston area stuff, and Maine. And you just meet a lot of celebrities, and it just, it's cool. And for the most part, most of them are really nice, really sweet. They're hustling. A lot of actors don't make the money that people think they do. The assumption is that, just because they're on a show that they're, living in a mansion and driving a Maserati. But the reality of it is they don't make the money that, you think they do. They make good money in many cases, but it's really expensive to live out in LA. So the good money they're making doesn't actually stretch as far as you think it would. Yeah, go visit Carl in the UK. Once you get over there, I'll come over to visit for sure. We'll book tickets. We want to go back to Europe. I haven't been in a while. But yeah, like I was on the elevator with like half the cast of The Walking Dead in Atlanta like 3 or 4 times. And they were all really nice, very kind, very sweet. Got to hang out with Jason Momoa briefly. He was really nice. I've been mistaken for Dave Bautista more than once. When my hair is shaved and I have a tan, I actually do look a lot like him. Like I hate to admit it, but I really do. And I've been mistaken for him at conventions more than once, which is always fun. Got to hang out with Sean Astin briefly, John Rhys Davies. I met a lot of the Star Wars actors before the new trilogy came out. A lot of them, like Kenny Baker and I forget his name, but the guy who played Boba Fett. I met Ray Parks a bunch of times. Ray Parks is awesome. Like, he's such a cool guy. He's like literally a ninja. And he just does ninja shit. So you'll be like walking around and be like, oh, I think that's the guy who plays Darth Maul, isn't it? And then he like whips out a lightsaber out of his backpack and just starts doing Darth Maul things in the middle of an aisle. And you're like, yeah, that's totally Darth Maul. Yep. So yeah, you meet a lot of cool people. And I've given a lot of books to people. Like one of my, when I did Rhode Island Comic-Con in 2014 or 2015, I forget. There was a lot of actors there that were like 80s and 90s nostalgia people. And one of my greatest life achievements was I got to get a copy of Adrian's to Michael Biehn, the guy who played Hicks in Aliens, and he was Kyle Reese in Terminator. And oh boy, like that was a big deal for me. I thought that guy was the shit. I loved his acting. Even as a kid, I thought he was a great actor. So the idea that I was able to get a book to him was like really cool. A lot of the people in Kevin Smith's circle I've been able to meet because the woman who represents a bunch of those guys, Juliette Terzieff, she brings them to conventions, and I got in kind of with her crowd of people, so I've been able to operate in their orbit more than once, which is pretty fun. Now, how many men has Adrian kissed? Probably none in a sexual way. He's pretty hetero in that regard. He jokes about being gay a lot, but that's because he's pretty comfortable with it, and he has a gay brother, and it like those jokes don't, they don't hit with him in a negative way. So, but yeah, probably none in a romantic / sexual sense. Like maybe one, but like I don't think so. What was the next question? An AUD focused chat with Tesser shining over your shoulder. What? Oh, behind me? Yeah. Hey, Aaron, eat a dick. So, but I mean, if you look right here, right here, right there, this is the AUD book right there. Thanks. Tesser's right here. And El Morin's actually right down there. You just can't see it. So last night's chat turned into pretty heavy El Morin, which is pretty cool. It's a series that many people have really enjoyed of mine. I wish more people have enjoyed it. It's like the people who like it love it. Just wish more people had read it. But, wrong button. Right button. There we are. Stop being a technical piece of stuff. Take too many pictures with this app and my phone starts to run like ass. So on the LGBTQ thing, now, well, Diggory is bisexual. Like pretty openly in the book he talks about it. And the third book, which isn't out yet, has a little bit of a subplot with that, because the people who are trying to manipulate him want him to basically be like controllable. And one of the things that they try and do is they try to seduce him. They want him to like pair off with someone that they can control, and they try both men and women to get him. which is kind of a fun kind of conceit to play around with. But yeah, he's openly bisexual. You can't control the buys or the pans. No, you can't. Expendable income growth. Diggory's fun. He's a good character. I like writing him a lot. He's, again, deeply messed up, which are my favorite characters to write. Tesser would be like hetero by default, because like his entire purpose on this planet is to ensure that procreation happens and that evolution moves forward. And there isn't a ton of reason to be bisexual or gay if your entire purpose on this earth is to make sure that procreation happens. So he would be, not that he would have anything against it. Like, I don't think he would judge anybody for being gay, but like, it just wouldn't be, he would literally be hardwired to be anything but. And in fact, what they're finding out is that a lot of, the reason why people wind up being gay or bi is because population happens, and they're starting to think that it's like a triggered evolutionary trait, that when populations become too large for an area, that the likelihood that people will start being born gay increases, which is really crazy. Hey, Don. Weekend is going swimmingly. We have had a good weekend here at the Philbrook household. The wife is away, enjoying herself at a little hotel. Kids have been good. I've gotten some stuff done. These chats are always fun. Yeah, they've done a ton of research about like the rates of homosexuality or bisexuality in families, and every time you go down a rung in terms of like birth order, the likelihood that someone is gay goes up, and the further down you go, it gets higher and higher and higher. So like, and it's by gender. So if you have like boy, girl, you've only had 2 boys and 2 girls. So the likelihood that they're gay is lower than if you had boy, because it's like the number in that gender in the family. And the further down you go, the percentages of them being gay or bi like skyrocket, to the point where like you just reach a certain point where you just start having gay kids, because your genes are saying like, all right, there's too many people in this goddamn house. Like we gotta stop making people who can have more babies. And what happens is the gay people are born and they contribute to the household and they contribute to society, but they don't reproduce, which is a way to save resources and still provide labor. And there's a lot of research showing that that's pretty legit. Leanna, pansexual is not having any preference. Pansexual is having attraction to everybody. Actually, pan means you are attracted to everybody for everything. You will literally fuck a toaster. Asexual is having no sex drive or no preference at all. Unless we're talking semantics, but whatever. Pansexual, I guess you could say like that not having a preference could mean that they'll go anyway. I read that as they have no desire for either. So apologies. I'm not trying to correct you. I'm not trying to mansplain you. But I mansplained you. I'm sorry. Yummy toaster. Yeah, just take a bath with it. Zap. It looks pretty good. Ooh, I got an Italian one. Move to the front. No, meaning you don't care what gender you are. Yep. Well, it's like sapiosexuals, people who are attracted to intelligence. Like you could look like, a chud. You could look like a troll, but if you're intelligent and articulate, sapiosexuals will just find you like the cat's meow. Which I think my wife might be, because she finds me attractive. And it's certainly not because I'm good looking. But if you lower the voltage of a toaster down to 1 to 2, it'll tingle your genitalia. Thanks, Noel. What am I painting now? No, I'm actually taking pictures of magic cards to list on eBay to get rid of them because I don't want them anymore. So I've got my phone here, and I've been sorting magic cards for months, getting them all organized by set and condition and card type. And I've been photographing them and listing them on eBay as I have time, as I am able to. And I'm doing that right now. I just sorted through probably, I don't know, a couple thousand cards to list the last few weeks. Actually, probably like last month. And I got them all sorted, and now I'm trying to take pictures of them to get them listed. Helps pay the bills. Need more focus. Ritalin for the win. Not Adderall. No thanks. 11. But I listed off like the really expensive stuff to kind of get that ball rolling financially. And now I'm like kind of listing like the B and C grade cards that are, only worth a few bucks each or $5 each, which feels like a waste of time, but it becomes a quantity thing where like instead of selling one card for $100, I'm selling 10 cards for $10 a piece. So it's a little bit more work, but it's quantity wise, it's good to get it out of the house. So on that meth life, that's right. If it wasn't for Ritalin, I would be a completely useless person. Like it's insane how I got through life before I started taking it. Like I can't even imagine like how much more effective and functional and successful I would have been had I been able to microdose meth at a much earlier age. Like the amount of time I squandered staring at TVs and trying to find dopamine and fucking hobbies instead of success. My word. I could be president. No, I'm unelectable. I'm an asshole. Too often I say what I'm thinking, which is not a trait politicians do well with. Have you thought about throwing a zombie token with every AUD shipped? Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that. Where is it? Literally right here, sitting on my desk, I have might be this entire stack. Yeah, this entire stack of cards here are all zombie tokens. These are all zombie cards that I have had on my desk for the longest time. And I was going to find something fun to do with them, like signing them, sending them out, doing something fun with them. But I haven't settled on a plan. I thought about putting them in with books as like a bookmark. But that seems like a waste because they're like, most people are just going to like leave it in there as a bookmark. But I want people who play Magic and read my books to get them. That way they can bring them to tournaments and use them in a game. And people will be like, who's that signed by? And then it's a conversation that comes up that would be really fun for them to have. And potentially I could find a new reader. So if anybody plays Magic and they want any zombie tokens, send me a message. I'll mail you a few. Sign them for you. Love the nails. Yep, my girl's got me. Juniper. She's always the one who gets me. She loves doing all of that, like makeup and nail painting and hair. Like she's that girl. Willow could give two shits. Like she just doesn't care. Like, hey kid, you should brush your hair. Nah. You really need to brush your hair. Nah. God damn it. Just brush your hair. You look like you got electrocuted. I think Brain Freeze. It's like a $7 card. Call it your Seminole deck. Seaman. Good enough. Good enough for right now. Good. What else, guys? Any more questions? Surely there are more questions. Need to go through this. Yikes. Back when I was playing a lot of Magic on the competitive circuit, like tournaments and stuff, the kind of land you got was like you talked shit about it, you bragged because every deck has land in it. You use land to generate mana, and you use mana to cast spells. And old school lands were these kind of crappy. The art's awful, like literally the art's like pretty terrible, and there's nothing special. And then they came out with like darker bordered lands that were cooler, like these. Like the art's way better. Art looks cooler, right? Like, oh, that's a big upgrade, right, from the other ones. And then when you were really cool, you got to use the full art lands, like these guys, like the whole picture's there, right? Like way better, right? And now they've came out with so many sets that have full art. There's different styles. Like this is an unglued one, right? That's right. But this is a John Avon painting. John Avon's like my favorite Magic artist. He has a ton of lands. Maybe not my favorite, but definitely one of my favorites. Now there's just so many full art lands out there in circulation that they're not really worth that much. They used to be worth like a couple bucks a piece, like sometimes $5-6 a piece. And foil ones were like crazy money. Did I get any Lord of the Ring? No, I'm not buying anymore. No, I'm like, they're coming out with the Fallout set for Magic, and like I love the Fallout universe, and I'm like, maybe I'll just buy that. Is anything happening at the school while the main story is in Germany? Great question, Beaver. When I was originally starting to write Adrian's March, I had live chats like this, and I asked people, like, if I'm going to write this and Adrian's going to leave the school, I think actually it was Last Resort. I actually asked people when he leaves, and I said, do you want to be reading side fictions about what's happening back at Bastion? And almost universally, everyone was like, no, we don't want to know. Because like that detracts away from what Adrian's doing. And it doesn't advance the plot of what Adrian's doing, and it doesn't add any character development that's going to affect what Adrian is doing. So I decided that I wasn't even going to like think about what was happening. And I still don't know. Like I have no idea what's happening. I don't know if I want it burnt to the ground, or they've got a Ferris wheel in the middle of campus. One of the ideas for what happens after Adrian's March is like, does he come back? And like maybe the third series of that universe is like the aftermath of him leaving for a year or two, which is a possibility because that might be fun to explore. But if I am gonna do that, I need to like really hash it out, and I also don't want to end Adrian's March with a book that has a couple of side fictions explaining like very clearly that we're going back, unless that's absolutely what I want to do. Because like foreshadowing to a point is good, like with Syl in book 8, where she's like basically like, you didn't think you were the only ones, right? What's better than three threes? And like that was enough. Like I left that Easter egg out there, took a fat dump right in everyone's expectations, and then walked away. So everybody was like, wait, what? But if I'm writing a side fiction about what's going on at Bastion, and it's like good or bad, then it's either going to be like, oh, it's good, everything's great, there's like no reason for Adrian to rush home. And if I write it and it's bad, then I'm obviously going to be bringing the story back. So I don't know. Great question. And I don't have a thought out answer for what's going on there. So from where Jack and you broadcast the good word, If you do that, turn MGR into an FM radio studio tower. Yeah, that would definitely be something they did. They put the repeater tower up there for a reason because it was so high up. It was the tallest point in town. So, but yeah, I mean, if I like gun to my head, I would say that things are probably good. I would say that they've probably had struggles with some groups, but they kind of dealt with the Northern Valley Cooperative in a pretty robust way, and I don't think that they would become, I don't think they would attempt to, flex their muscles on Bastion, even with Adrian gone. I think that they would have, he did a lot of damage to them, and when they're leaving, there's like this sense that the government is kind of showing up again, because Lancaster shows up and he's got like Humvees and he has like a naval boat waiting at the dock for them, and very clearly Lancaster is connected to a much larger group of government officials that are trying to reinstall some level of order. And I think, like, that being said, I think the consensus idea would, or the hope would be that there's more government level organization and safety involved back there, which would hopefully keep things a little bit more copacetic. And Adrian the Bastion, Mexicans emigrating north, Hector's revenge. That's like that's not even fiction. Abby for president. She could do it. She's electable. She's really smart and thoughtful. And that is almost dry. So, yeah. For the Tales series, though, I would like to do another anthology of short stories, and I think having the themes helps, because like the first one, it was like, let's go back and republish the fan fiction from the website because it was gone, and I wanted to give people a chance to read the really good ones. And that was like the theme for the first one. And the second one, Only the Light We Make, was like a continuation in the universe, with the hopes that the stories would be examples of how people were doing the right thing. And like, if you want to change the world, be the change, right? So, we can see in the dark only by the light we make. And that was like kind of the theme of that one. And then Dead Lucky was good luck and bad luck, where the main characters in each story was just like having a profoundly lucky moment or a profoundly unlucky moment, because I thought that was really fun. So if I did it again, I would want some kind of a theme to make. Picture Abby as Nicole Conan. Great triceps. I don't think I've ever had someone say that someone was attractive because of their great triceps. Nicole Cohen? I think you spelled Cohen wrong. Nicole Cohen. Can you confirm the spelling? Conan? Ooh. Paul Conan. Who is this person? Oh, is she on like YouTube? Is she an Instagrammer? Oh, she does have great triceps. Yeah, it's definitely her. Yeah. That she would be fairly in there. I think she's probably bigger than Abby. Like, this would be like Abby in Adrian's March. Like, this is the way, Abby's body develops, having to work all the time and lug her kid around. But yeah, she wouldn't be too far off. Hey, Holland family. The chick is ripped. Ooh, should be so lucky. Why am I so tired? I was up pretty late last night. I crawled into bed and then couldn't fall asleep because, that's the way it goes. Lumberjack Abbey. Lumber Abbey. because we're old. I took Willow to this really cool Girl Scouts STEM event today, and was able to earn 2 badges while she was there. And it was in a gymnasium, and I got down on the floor to help her, assemble some project that she was working on. And I went to get up, and it was like, and this woman standing next to me was like, there needs to be chairs. This event does not cater to people who are over 40. Like, you're goddamn right. You suck. Smarties? Anybody a Smartie fan? These little things look like pills. I used to think these were good. These are like flavorless. Better eat more. Only one way to tell. Yum. So good. So good. So good. So yeah, this gummies are awesome. Yeah, like my girls eat gummies like crazy. I would steal theirs, but they took an inventory of their candy this year for Halloween. And like now, if I take something, they'll do inventory and no. So I didn't get my dad tax in time. Amazing how different Boys and Girls Scouts are up here. Yeah, it used to be way more religious up here. The Scouts organization, like you had to swear to God and all this other stuff, but it's become way more homogenous. All the candy is worse now. Only way to eat cartilage. Yeah, right. Vegetarian diets. Well, Leah's a vegetarian. My wife is a vegetarian. Are you happy about getting our hour back? No. Honestly, having little kids, the daylight savings time changes are such a pain in the ass because they get so deregulated by it. Because they in the summer it stays lighter later, and they're like, why are we going to bed? And they get all pissed off because it's bedtime. And then during this change, they struggle to go to bed the next day, and it takes them like a day or two to regulate. So we have some really shitty bedtimes and some really shitty wake ups. And it's like, I just want to skip it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. But before I forget, everybody, part of the reason why I'm doing this Bad Wabbit statue is because I'll be at Double Midnight Comics this coming Saturday in Manchester, New Hampshire. So if you're local to New England and you want to come by to say hi, come on by. I'll have a bunch of my books, and then I'll have I have a stack of Bad Wabbit comics that I brought or I got, and then I also have some Bad Wabbit stickers, some Toxic Pig stickers from the story, and I also have posters. So if you are interested at all in picking up any of the Bad Wabbit stuff, it'll be a great time. You've been on the program your whole life. Sugar is your energy source. Yep. Lack of protein. Yeah, beans, man. Quinoa. Do you eat quinoa? Quinoa is really good for protein for vegetarians. Leah eats a lot of quinoa. She eats a lot of beans as well too, and cheese. She gets a lot of protein from cheese. So I got the Bad Wabbit right here. Ta-da! This is the regular cover, right? So I don't know if you can see because it's in gold, but Anthony signed this one right here. Oh, if I do this, you can kind of see the shine. So Anthony has signed this. So if you come to the store, I will sign this one for you, and that way you'll have both of our autographs. So, which is pretty cool. Nice little fight scene. But yeah, it's a pretty good comic book, even if you're not into the anthropomorphic thing. It's the story is good. He just wanted to do the animals because it seemed like fun to him. But I'll also have a small quantity of these guys, which is the alternate cover. And only 25 of these were made. 25. That's it. So I think I'll have 4. I think I have 4 of the 25. So if you want one, let me know. And then after the store event ends, they'll probably pick up some copies they have on the shelf, and then I'll put some up for sale direct. Vegetable protein doesn't cut it. So Leah does liquid aminos with quinoa to get the amino acids there. So if you do the either coconut aminos or liquid aminos with quinoa, it's a complete source of protein for vegetarians. I don't know if you can get liquid aminos in Argentina, but she can get them from the grocery stores carry them here. Trader Joe's has some really good ones too. So, but it's tough because we kept the kids vegetarian because Leah is a moral vegetarian. She doesn't like how animals are treated, but she's okay with other people eating meat. But with the kids, she and I had the talk when we had them that she wanted them to make the choice to eat meat because she didn't want them to grow up and be like, you guys fed me meat this whole time and I don't agree with it. Like she wanted them to be able to say, okay, yeah, I want to eat meat. So they were vegetarian until they were like 5. And then Willow kept asking, like, I want to try meat. I want to try meat. I want to try meat. And we just had the conversation with her. Like, all right, you know that meat is animals, right? Yep. All right, here's a piece of ham. And now both of them eat meat, but not that much. Like they don't eat a ton. And they're pretty selective about what they like. And Willow doesn't like chicken. Like any way we make chicken, she doesn't like chicken, but she likes red meats. So she likes steak. She likes hamburgers. She'll eat a hamburger every night. It's crazy. And then she likes pork. So like ham and ribs, like pork ribs and stuff like that. And then Juniper is hit or miss with any kind of food at any point of the day. She's very fussy and constantly changes what she likes and doesn't like, which makes it almost impossible to feed her on a regular basis. Because, you know, she's the classic example of like, oh, you like this yogurt? Great, cool. I'm so glad you like it. And then the next time we go grocery shopping, we buy 6 of them. And then she goes to eat them and she's like, I don't like any of them. I don't like that anymore. I'm like, we have a case of this shit now. Just put them on my butt. Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. It's very frustrating. Like tonight for dinner, I made shake and bake chicken thighs and I made glazed carrots. And that was like dinner. And yes, for last night for dinner, I made barbecue pork spare ribs. And what did I do for a side? I forget. Pasta, rice, I forget. And last night, Willow ate the ribs. Juniper had 1 rib and whatever the side was. And then tonight, Willow wouldn't eat the chicken. Juniper wouldn't eat the chicken, but they literally ate an entire pot of carrots. And like the last time I offered Juniper carrots, she literally spat them out so forcefully it like hit the television and was like, gross. And then tonight she's literally 2-fisting carrots into her face and can't eat them fast enough. So like whatever. No, back to zombies in AUD. What aspect of your zombies you kind of wanted to change and modify, but it was too late to do so? Gosh. I was really set on having Romero-esque zombies because I wanted it to be like an homage. So like they're even like in AUD, they talk about how they're like even kind of blue skin and jaundiced, which is very much how the undead were in the Night, Dawn, and Day of the Dead books or movies. And I wanted that because I wanted that. And I also wanted them to be slow and stupid. So Adrian could outsmart them with very simple, obstacles and things to make their life tough. You're welcome, Beaver. Didn't think you would do it during the live stream. Yeah, no, I don't mind talking about anything if I can. There are some things I can't talk about, and usually I avoid those, or I just say I can't talk about them. But like, I don't mind theorizing online like this. So the zombies, I wanted them to look Romero-esque. I wanted them to be slow, and I knew I wanted them to be silent because when I was reading a bunch of zombie books and watching zombie movies, and they were like, like that's just for like entertainment value. And I kept thinking like, what parts of their body would actually function, right? And if they're not breathing, they wouldn't be moaning. The only noise they'd make would be like incidental biological processes like rot, flatulence, whatever. And I addressed that in the books. And I wanted them to lunge when they got close, so they felt really slow until they got close, and then they were like savage monsters that they just beat you to death, because that's what they do. They don't eat you necessarily, they kill you. And I wanted that for sure. And then I knew that because they were spawned through evil, that as evil grew in power or grew in desperation, evil would be able to do more with them. And that gave me room to grow. It gave me room to make them more malicious or more intelligent, or perhaps even give them like some level of supernatural powers, which as the series goes on, it becomes progressively more and more supernatural and strange in that way, without going, hopefully I don't go over the top, because I'm already stretching credibility. But I don't think I would change. I don't think I would change much. I didn't want to do the Resident Evil thing. I didn't want to have super zombies. I didn't want to have zombie dogs. That's not AUD. I wanted it to be a more intense personal thing. I wanted it to be about good and evil and changing the world. And regular zombies can be scary enough. And while Adrian does struggle with survivors, very much the problem is the zombies and what they're trying to do. So. Beaver might be in the group. I think he's playing in the game, the role-playing game, and he's on Facebook. I don't know if he's in the group, but I know he's aware of it. But yeah, I wouldn't change the zombies. If I were to go back and write a new zombie story, like if I was going to do it all again, but a different story with different characters and write a different level of zombie apocalypse, I would do it. I would do the zombies different. I don't know exactly what I would do. I don't think I would do like a generic plague thing, because like it's been done to death, like the virus. Chris, yeah. So I would do something special. I mentioned it before that I have an idea for a potential next series after I get done with AUD that I want to try and write. And it's post-apocalyptic. Actually, no, that's not true. It's apocalyptic. So it isn't after, the end. AUD is a largely post-apocalyptic story in the sense that the majority of it takes place after the end of the world. Whereas an apocalyptic story takes place during the actual worst moments of the apocalypse. Like that day. And the story I'm germinating takes place on like a very encapsulated period of time during the worst of it. And it isn't undead, but it's undead adjacent, I think. And they're not like, they're not AUD zombies by any stretch of the imagination. So is it lit RPG? No. Although Carl and I have bullshit about co-writing a lit RPG, which might be really fun. Again, it comes down to time, because like I struggle to find time to work on my current projects. And lit RPG is great. Like, it's fun. Like, I've read a handful of them in there. Like, the good ones are really fun. And like my Venn diagram of like RPG and writing is like literally lit RPG. But having not written it and not being super familiar with like all the ins and outs and tropes and stuff, it would be like a learning curve for me. Now I came up with a telepathy aspect in zombies, which they don't share mine, but if a zombie notices something, they determine it a wave. Yep. Yeah, they're like a networked intelligence. They do that in The Last of Us, because they're like the spores, not the spores, but like the fungal roots all connect. And when something happens over here, off over here, because all these roots are in the ground, through dead bodies and through where the spores have grown like regular mushrooms, they can kind of communicate like that. And there was a comic book, an Undead comic book that came out in I think the 90s. I have a bunch of them. They're like, I think it's like Dead City or Dead World. I think it's Dead World. And I believe in Dead World, I might be wrong, they have like, comic book series Dead World. They have like zombie kings, and they can like, King Zombie, an intelligent talking zombie, they like are connected to him somehow. I forget exactly how it works, but that would be kind of fun to do something like that. "26 issues in the ongoing series, volume 215 series. And they have a whole bunch of limited series, like, 4 books set in the world, that kind of thing. And then a bunch of one-shots. I own a bunch of it. I started buying it when it first came out in the 80s at a way too young age, I think. I think I was like 11. But those are fun. I am a bit of a zombie nerd. I was very big into it when I was a kid. I've seen almost every zombie movie there is to see. And I have read a lot of books, which is funny because now that I write zombie books for a living, I don't read as much as I used to. And part of that is I spend so much time thinking about it in a creative sense that when I have leisure time to read about something or like to enjoy myself reading a book, I can't read the stuff that I'm writing because it feels like work. So when I'm like reading a book to entertain myself or listening to an audiobook to entertain myself, I listen to stuff that I don't write. Like I try to do stuff that's completely, off the reservation in that regard. I listen to a lot of like nonfiction, and I listen to a lot of like memoir stuff, and a lot of like hard science fiction, and a lot of 40K, Warhammer 40K lore, like Black Library books. I like listen to a lot of that stuff. I also listen to a lot of like straight horror, like Adam Neville, Ronald Malfi, Joe Hill, stuff like that. So, because like that feels like an escape. But like if I read books that are just like the ones I write, reading doesn't become escapism or entertainment for me. It just becomes like work research, which isn't all that fun. I don't feel like I get away at all. The ultimate impenetrable lore. Yep. How are we doing here? Is this dry? It looks dry. Everybody's going to watch me inhale aerosol fumes here in a second. Normally I go outside to do this, but our doors are alarmed, and if I go outside right now, it could wake the kids. So I'm just gonna spray my purity seal here. Yeah, that's dry. Ta-da! So, and we were just talking about 40K. This is Citadel Miniatures Purity Seal. Citadel Miniatures is the miniature manufacturing arm of Games Workshop, which is the company that makes 40K. Ventilate that room. I'm not spraying that much, thankfully. But yeah. Where'd my cardboard go? Yeah, this is a huge room. It looks big, but like it's actually like, gosh, the ceilings are probably 8 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet, and it's probably 40 feet wide by 60 feet long, something like that. So, and I got a fan going over there to circulate it. So, don't do this at home, kids. Go back over here. Ta-da. I'm gonna let that dry. So that's matte sealant, which will give it a little protection against scuffing and touching and scratching. Already looks better. Of course, as soon as I set it down, it looks like there's a pubic hair on it, which will be great. Where are my craft tweezers? Yes, I am the guy that keeps tweezers. What is the house on the shelf behind me? Legos. Legos. I will show you in a second. Tweezers are resin impregnated. You can't pick anything up. There we go. Aha, eyelash. This house right here is the Lego Cafe, which is a cool story. When my wife and I first started to date, we were both Lego aficionados, and I had a bunch of Lego sets in my apartment when we met, and I was like, yeah, I like to do Legos every once in a while. It's like just fun for me to do. And she was like, I like to build Legos. Let's build Legos together. And this was our first big date. We built this together. And it's like kind of our thing where when we have more space and a way to display it more meaningfully, that we will hopefully be able to have more. Like we have the bookshop too at home upstairs in the attic, and it's not built yet because as a writer, it was like cafe and a bookshop, perfect. And the idea is that we'll link them together, because this is like the modular town. Like I don't know if you can see it, but there's like 2 pegs right here, peg holes, and then on the other side of all these are the pegs that connect, so you can literally link them all together to make a city street. So the hope is that one day when we have our house back, we can have both of those together in the same place on display. But that was our first date. That was our first big date, which was really fun. And then when I proposed to her, I proposed with Legos, because we had like our dating period was us building Legos for fun, which was really sweet. Hey, Josh, don't get too high. What book am I currently working on? Diggs 3. Ooh, you're about to start Elmore book 3. Elmore book 3 is awesome. That's like a really good book. Yeah, Diggory 3. And a super secret project that nobody knows about, which is almost done. and like I could be done this week with it. And I just started working on AUD 15 in earnest, and I have some comic book stuff that's still kind of simmering that I've been working a little bit on. I'm also spending a lot of time on the AUD rebrand, which I actually wanted to talk about tonight and haven't yet, because all the art for the hardcovers is now going to be the art moving forward for all of the core books in the series. And eventually, time and money permitting, I will redo all of the artwork for the Adrian's March ones, because they worked at the time, but they're kind of outdated now, and it's time for a relaunch. So fresh covers might draw on a fresh audience. So not well. Where do you think you might be today if you never actually sat and started writing AUD? What did I think my life was when I started writing? So I had just graduated from college with my psych degree, and I had spent several months trying to get a job working with veterans, and did not have any luck. Like I couldn't even get an unpaid internship at like the VA, because they give preference to veterans, and I did not serve. And after a while, it got to be like, well, I just got to start getting experience. And as I said before earlier tonight, my minor is in criminal justice. And I got that minor because, the military work that I was doing and the PTSD work that I wanted to work with was adjacent to, the law enforcement community, because a lot of cops and firefighters and stuff like that have a lot of PTSD, traumatic brain injury and whatnot. And I like accidentally took half the courses to get the minor. Like I didn't plan it that way. But when I got to my senior year, second time around, they were like, here are all the programs you're qualified for. And when I looked at the requirements, it was like, hey, if I take 2 classes for my electives, I get this minor. So I'm just going to do that. And I was applying for, mental health positions, and I started applying for police officer positions. And I got 2 job offers almost simultaneously. And the first one I got was to be a state police officer here in New Hampshire. I got hired to be a state police officer at the Philbrook Hospital in Concord, which is named after a relative of mine. And I was going to be like on-site police security working for the state police. And the idea is if you do 2 or 3 years there, you can become a regular patrol state trooper without military or previous law enforcement experience. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, that's perfect. I have a psych degree, so I'll be like working in the environment with people that I wanted to, and I'll be a cop. And the pay at the time was really good. And then I got the other job offer working at the treatment facility. And that was third shift. But, when I sat down and looked at it, it was like, look, the state trooper job is going to be dangerous because you don't carry, like you're just in there with dangerous people. And it's rotating shifts. So like you might work, 2 weeks on first, and then 2 weeks on second, 2 weeks on third, which is really crazy. And I was like, I think the treatment facility is a better idea. I did a walkabout there for a whole day, and it was a treatment facility for kids, and I had a blast like hanging out with these kids. And they're all messed up, right? These are all kids who are dealing with a whole host of problems, mental, neurological, sometimes it's family. And they were all so sweet and like so kind, and they struggled a lot when I was there, so it wasn't all sunshine and roses. And I was like, what? It would be really cool to help these kids. Like it would be really neat to step in and be like a stable adult. So I started working at the treatment facility third shift, which is when I started writing AUD. So I had already made the decision to work at the facility, so I don't think I'd be a cop. But, I was there for 6 years. I think I started in 2010. I left full-time in 2015. So I was there 5 years full-time. And then I did part-time for another year. And then I moonlighted part-time here and there for years, working a weekend here, a weekend there, a night here, a night there when money got tight. So if I wasn't writing AUD, I would think I would probably still be working there or working in mental health somehow. I probably would have gone back to get my master's degree so I could be more of a licensed mental health counselor or a social worker. But once the writing started to take off, the idea of going back for my master's degree got shelved because it was like, why? Why am I going to go get education when I'm having a lot of success doing this? And I don't need more education to continue creating the stories that I'm creating. And I've debated going back to get like a creative writing degree, but like, I don't know, like, what are they going to teach me? And I'm not saying that the degree wouldn't have value and I wouldn't learn things, but they're expensive. And I don't want to rack up another $25,000 worth of, college loans that, are going to what? I'm still going to write the same stories. But if I was in mental health, I'd probably get my master's, and I would either still be working at the facility or, maybe I'd have my own practice. I'm not sure. I don't know how good a therapist I'd actually be, but I had tremendous success with the kids at the facility. So applied to be a police officer in Argentina, but they weren't looking for IT specialists. Bummer. Cybercrime would have been awesome. PSA, airport police. Yeah, I got some buddies who work at hospitals and airports doing, they call it TSA here. And Aaron, he was in the chat earlier. He works at one of the bigger hospitals here in New Hampshire. He's airport hospital security, which again is not a great job. They can get weird and ugly at a hospital. And at the treatment facility I worked at, it was violent and aggressive. Like, we had a lot of kids that were not safe to be around. And they were very violent. But, I'm a big fella, and I am good at the physical stuff in terms of like keeping it safe and using the correct amount of force and maintaining a level head. Like the Adrian talks about how he like doesn't panic, and that's very much me. Like, when shit goes crazy, I literally just like assess and then make a decision. And I always make a stable, sensible, smart decision in those moments. I'm not impulsive, and I don't just like react. When I do react, I react in a meaningful way. So that has served me in my life, that I don't go into that kind of panic mode. Spill some beans. How's Hollywood going? And you went down the paths you were meant. Yeah, I agree. Hollywood's dead in the water right now. I talked about it a couple of live streams ago, but you probably weren't there. But we were there. We were in the meetings. We had the pitches going. We had financing lined up for a good chunk of it. And then we were basically a lock with Warner Brothers, which is HBO. Like, we were there. Like, we had the executive producer, we had the showrunner, we had special effects lined up, we had everything. And then Warner Brothers merged with Discovery, and when we went in for the pitch meeting, we were probably about 2 weeks late. And the CEO of production at Warner Brothers was like, we can't greenlight anything because we're merging. So sorry. And then we took the project and we shopped it around to a couple other places, and we got a bunch of interest from Blumhouse. Jason Blumhouse of Blumhouse Productions, which he does mostly horror movies, but he's trying to get into television. And my people in Hollywood, they had a meeting set up for other things, but the meeting turned into, hey, have you heard about AUD? And Jason Blum read the series and loved it, and then inquired about the rights. And there's a giant spider on my desk. What are you doing, buddy? You can't live there. You can't live there. Go somewhere else. But anyway, we went to Jason, and then it kind of died with Jason. And all of the people who were attached to the project have moved on to other things because it became, too much work to continue on that. And they were getting job offers to work on other things. So the guy who was my showrunner, who was going to be executive producer, one of the main executive producers, got hired to run a show for Netflix, and he did that. And they shot the first season, and it was kind of successful. It didn't get renewed, but it was pretty popular. Not popular enough to get renewed, though. And then he got hired to write a couple of scripts for them, spec scripts. And he hasn't been able to come up for air after that, so I kind of lost him as a showrunner. And then my main producer, like the real executive producer and production company guy, was Pete Safran, who, he's a juggernaut in the industry. But Pete Safran owns Safran Productions, which makes like The Conjuring and Annabelle and like all of those. But Safran Studios also branched out into the DC universe. So like Aquaman, Shazam, all of those DC movies they made, like basically like the good ones. And they just spun up DC Studios off of Warner Brothers and Discovery. And Pete Safran is co-CEO of that now with James Gunn. So like the main finance production company guy that I had lined up moved on to much greener pastures. And then my showrunner has been pulled away to do other stuff. And at that point, everybody else who was organized underneath him, they're in the wind. So does anyone come up with a script to try and sell? Or should you throw money at it? I have no money to throw at it. I'm not liquid enough to hire anybody. Mark, my showrunner, is also a writer. He's an Emmy award-winning writer. And it was very important to him that he and I write the pilot script together and not farm it out at first, because the pilot's everything. It's what the networks or streaming services read to make the decision to give you a season. And he was very much dead set on making sure that the pilot was, in his control and up to par and good. And this is a guy who has a history of selling shows. He's been a showrunner for 6 or 7 shows now. Like he has a lengthy resume of success in Hollywood. So when he said, "Hey, we got to do it this way," like he's the guy who tells you how to do it. Like people go to him and say, "How should we do it?" And then he says, "You should do it like this," and then people do it like this, and it happens. And we got the framework for a couple scripts put together, and it went back and forth. And it's like, how much do you say, and how much do you reveal? And there wasn't a final thing. And the last thing we were talking about before it went dead was we were going to put together the show Bible, which is basically a database of all the big plot lines, all the characters, all of the beats of the story, like where all the different like big scenes need to be. And once you have all that, then you can build scripts off of it pretty easily, which is shitty because like I already wrote the damn books, and then he and I are sitting down to write this Bible, and it's like I'm now going through my book, taking notes and cliff noting my own work, which is tough. But that's something that you would hire like a new writer to do, to read the books and then to take the notes and then to put the Bible together, and then I would check the Bible. But we never got to that point. We never had a budget. We were just doing it as a passion project. So once the money started to show up, that's when everyone disappears. Josh, that sucks. It was not meant to be. Well, yeah. I mean, we'll get there. A lot of people looked at it. A lot of people read it. It got put in front of a lot of influential people in Hollywood, and the people who liked it still like it. Hopefully. The thing with Hollywood is it's so fickle, and so much of it is who you know and timing. If you talk to the right people and the right people are in the right position to make that kind of show, you're far more likely to get a yes. And then if you're knocking on the wrong door at the wrong day, it doesn't matter how good your project is or how successful it's going to be. They're just not not in the business to do that show. So, and then there's like a fringe opportunity for some movies, but that seems pretty unlikely right now. And I just found out that A24 is now looking for larger budget productions. The A24 movies, I love A24 movies. They're really like psychological and a little mind fucky in there. They have like really high production values. So I put out some feelers in their direction last week before, but I haven't heard anything. So, and that ties into the conversation that I had about agents, because I used to have a literary agent, but I let him go a couple of 4 years ago, because we didn't have the greatest relationship, and he made me some money and he was helpful in many ways, but like it just, our personalities clashed more than they needed to, and it became tough. It became tough to work with him, just honestly. And literary agents help you get book deals. Film agents help you get TV deals. And most literary agents don't do both. So what happens is you get a literary agent, the literary agent sells the book, and then the literary agent finds a film agent to pitch your book to studios to see if you can sell the TV rights. So I don't really need a literary agent, because I'm able to put stuff out and make pretty good money, but I really could use a film agent. And I don't have enough like wild success as a writer that, I've got film agents knocking themselves over trying to represent me. I'm successful, but I'm not like New York Times, multi best-selling author successful. So I'm in a weird spot. But as I've said before, I'm very grateful that I even got to the point that I was at as a writer. Like in terms of like getting something made, like the fact that I was having phone calls and we were having casting discussions, and, we were literally writing down wish lists of people to reach out to. And we had directors that were interested in doing episodes. Like that's amazing. Like that's crazy. And like, that was my life. And like, I feel very fortunate, very, very fortunate, even though it didn't happen. And in the interim, keep writing books. Hopefully people like them. And hopefully I can, keep pushing forward and come up with new ideas that entertain people and give me the opportunity to keep writing as a job, and be able to work from home and provide my kids with a parent that's more present than, if I was working a 9 to 5 or a second or a third shift job. Like that to me is invaluable. The fact that I work at home and, I can pick up my kids and I can drop them off, and if they're sick, I can just go get them. That is like an enormous thing. That was a big part of why I've worked so hard to do this. 'Cause like, that's cool. Like I didn't have to have daycare. I was able to be home with my kids. That's amazing. So stay focused on those things. Keep moving forward. And AUD's got 1 or 2 books. Diggory's got 1 or 2 more. And probably not going to be returning to Elmore. Probably won't be returning to Tesser. Which means I have 1 more Dry Earth book that I want to write. I have more Colony Loss I'd like to write. And then I have that series that I've been percolating that's apocalyptic, that will probably be the next big venture I do. And that I want to I think that one's cool. That's a good story. And I want to focus on that and give it a real shot. So, but who knows? So maybe I'll change my mind. Plus we had that whole smut conversation, and like 70% of the people said they want to read smut. So maybe I'll write some smut. But it is almost 11:30. You want to talk about something? You mentioned it like 15 minutes ago. What was it? I think I covered it. Now, honest questions. How's the family? They're good. The family's good. Kids are good. They're doing great in school. Wife's good. Her practice is going well. We're all healthy. I want to lose more weight, but that's been the story of my life. But I'm healthy. I'm sleeping good. Like we're good. The family's good. Like we're in a good spot. And what is my most memorable D&D memory that I did? God, I've played a lot, and there have been a lot of really great memories. The first one that jumps into my mind was the first really serious character that I played. And it was probably like my second or third character that I made, but the first two were kind of like throwaways for like one-offs. And the main one that I played was a paladin called Devin Corway. And Devin was like in today's D&D, he would have been a Tabaxi or a Leonin. But back in second edition, when it was out, they didn't have those races. So this was like a homebrew race that my DM made. Alan, the guy who does art for me, he was the DM for it. And he was a paladin of a dragon god, like a Bahamut Tiamat situation. He was, Bahamut and the good dragons, and he was a good paladin and a good character. And his mount for being a paladin was a dragon, because he worshipped a dragon god. So it was a fairly high-powered campaign. And in the campaign, he wound up falling in love with a wild mage. And in 5th edition, it would be a wild magic sorcerer, but it was different back then. And we had a subplot line in the campaign where he proposed and she accepted, and then they had to go to her family to basically like inform the mom and dad that that their daughter was getting married, and Devin had to like prove himself to the family. And obviously I think I was like 16 when this was all going down, 16 years old. So like I was nervous as shit, right? Like my character is going to meet my NPC girlfriend's fiance's family, and what if they don't like me and they shoot down the wedding? It's a completely fictional character. So we went and we visited them, and I immediately, my character gets weird vibes off the dad, right? And paladins can sense evil. Like that's just one of their latent abilities. And I was like, am I sensing evil? And, Alan was like, it's not evil, but, something's just, setting off your spidey senses. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to make a scene. I'm not going to do anything weird. And Bramwell, my dragon, had to go off and do something, so I didn't have him with me. And there was a night when we were staying with them in their family. She was like fairly well-to-do, like not a princess, but like nobility. And we were sleeping in their guest room, and I woke up and someone was leaving the room, and they were carrying my shit. They were like stealing my stuff. And I jumped out of bed. My character jumped out of bed and just started chasing them like as fast as I could. And I followed this character like through the whole castle and like into the rooms and into a sub basement. And I watched him go through a hidden door. And I like raced to the door and got my hand through it and pulled the door open and followed this guy down into these passages beneath the castle. And by then I'm like, it's the dad. Like I know it's the dad, right? Like subterranean passages beneath the castle. If he doesn't know about it, that's bullshit. And I get all the way down there and I finally confront him, and he stole my character's sword. And no, he stole my character's armor and sword. And all I had was my shield, which was a magic shield that I went on this great quest to find. And I'm literally chasing this guy down in my underwear. Like my character's literally wearing his tighty whities and he has a shield. And Devin invested a ton of training in unarmed combat, which in 2nd edition, when you did it, you could continue to invest like skill points. I call them proficiencies. But every time you invested more skill points in it, you became better. You did more damage and you could do more devastating things with it, kind of like how monks get better in 5th edition. And I was down there like in this room, and this guy is like, I'm gonna, like it was the dad, and he's like, I can't let you marry my daughter. And like you have to leave or I'm going to kill you. And And I was like, why are you stealing my stuff? I'm like, couldn't you just like tell me I can't marry your daughter? Why do you have a subterranean chamber under your castle? And I noticed that he had like items of sacrament to the god opposite mine, like the Tiamat of my Bahamut duo. And I was like, oh man, like, do you worship her? And he was like, yes, I do. And, I have a following here and whatever. And I was like, well, shit, now I got to take you out because like you're a priest of this evil god. And he's like, no, I'll take you out first. Dude's holding my sword and I'm like bare-assed. And he rushes at me and like I managed to use my martial arts to like knock him out. Like literally I made the roll and knocked him out. And I was like, all right, I'm going to deal with you later. Like I can't kill my fiance's dad on the eve of the wedding. And just as I do that in the back of this cave, I hear growling and like big growling, like big growling. And out comes this, I think it was a young adult red dragon, which in second edition was like, out of like the 8 age categories, it would have been like the 3rd or 4th, right? Might have been an adult. I think it was an adult. So like middle of the pack. And I'm still just like bare-assed. And it comes out and like swats the sword away. So I don't have my sword. So I still just have my shield, right? And I have nowhere to go. I can't get out. And I wind up having to square off with this adult red dragon, literally in my underwear with a shield. And through some miracle of dice rolling, I managed to literally beat the dragon to death with this character, one-on-one, mano a mano. And I don't actually recall, but I remember like the killing blow where I knocked it out. And like I remember literally like just losing my mind because I had somehow managed to do like, I forget how many hit points it had, but it was like 180 hit points. And I managed to do that without dying. And I think I was like 12th level at the time, which is pretty high level. But like I was bare-assed. Like I have no idea how I survived. I know I almost died. I remember being super low on hit points. And back then paladins could, you could do the lay on hands to heal yourself, and you could heal a lot. And I remember like I had to do healing spells because, paladin at 12th level has a little bit of healing magic. And I had to do the lay on hands to heal myself. And my shield gave me damage reduction against dragon breath, which like basically was a huge part of it. So as long as I could like shield myself, it like reduced the breath damage pretty significantly. But I somehow managed to like knock it out. And then I got my sword and then I killed it. And I don't remember what happened to the dad because, after beating the dragon to death with my bare hands, it was like whatever happened to the dad was whatever. But I'm pretty sure I had to kill him too. Or I turned him in and the priests of my order dealt with him. But that was probably the most memorable thing that I did. Paladins are a well-built paladin is a juggernaut. They can do just about everything. Especially if you cross them with rogue. Like the old adage is the Batman build. They call it the Batman build. So if you go rogue 1, first level rogue to get all the extra skills and stuff, and then paladin 1, and then go up to rogue 3 or 5. I think in 5e it's 3. In 3e you went to 5. And then the rest paladin, you basically get like every cool ability that you can get in a class. Because you get like all of the, like you get uncanny dodge, which you can have damage when you're attacked. You get evasion when you get hit by spells, you can dodge it. You get dex saving throws, which paladins don't normally get. And if you wear light armor and have a high dex, you can have like batshit crazy insane AC, and then you get great saving throws because of the paladin aura, and they call it Batman because you're like an agile knight. So when's the secret project seeing the light of day? Soon, actually, because I've done a lot of the work on the release portion of it already. So like when the book is actually done, it'll be able to release pretty quickly. So that could be out as soon as like the holidays, I think. We'll see. A masochist paladin will be broken, getting a buff whenever you get damaged. There are definitely builds out there that do that. There are definitely ways to do that, like the drunken monk kind of thing, where like the more drunk you get, the more damage you do. There's mechanics for it. But yeah, that would be my most memorable. There have been quite a few. I played a Dark Sun campaign, which is like an apocalyptic D&D campaign setting where there's these like sorcerer kings who have like city states that they live in, and my character was suicidal. Like he literally didn't care if he died, and he was not a good person. And I was like at odds with the servants of this one sorcerer king. And I found out that the sorcerer king's library had a scroll that had some information on it that I really needed to get. And I wound up like manipulating all these people into telling me where the scroll was in the library. And I think I hit 7th level as this was a spellcaster class character, and at 7th level, which allowed me to dimension door into places. So you open a door and you walk through it and you come out somewhere else, right? It's not pure teleportation, but I opened a door, went into this sorcerer king's private library after like months and months and months of sneaking around and research, found the scroll, and then I hated this asshole so much. I stood in the middle of his library where he kept all of his like most precious things, and I literally went fireball, 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 fuck you, I'm out, and then dimension doored out and started like a literally campaign long like revenge quest for this guy, where like he and his forces literally followed me through the entire remainder of the campaign. And my character was built to be really hard to find. So he couldn't find me the whole time. And then eventually I like leveled up enough that I could take him out. And then I wound up going back and killing the guy. But that was a really good memory too. But that was a foolish thing to do. But my character literally didn't care if he lived or died. He was just more invested in screwing over somebody who had given him a hard time. And that's where a lot of my character ideas come from for books, because I played crazy ass characters in role-playing games growing up, also as an adult. But it is 11:35 and I need to go to bed. We are gaining an hour of sleep tonight, but I still need to get my beauty sleep. I need all the help I can get. So thanks everyone for showing up. Now I'll appreciate all your support tonight as usual. And if anybody needs anything, just reach out. I know a couple people messaged me for codes, but I'm sitting here doing this, but I'll message you for codes later. And yeah, thanks. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend.